All right, so as the slide says, it's time for a quick, high-level conceptual overview. I'd like to try and introduce things at a conceptual level first before we dive into the commands, but I also don't want to take too long. I know we just want to get to the commands. So in this video, I want to talk about the term repository. This comes up all the time when we talk about Git and GitHub, so much, in fact, that people usually just say repo instead of repository, save a couple of characters there. They're the same thing. So a Git repository is just a Git workspace. Installing Git on our machine is great. I have Git over here. Hopefully you installed Git, following the instructions in the course. I have Git, I can just verify it's here. I can check the version, sure. But that doesn't mean Git is active or that I'm using Git. It's just on my machine. I have to manually tell Git when I want to use it and in which directories. I have to create repositories. So anytime I want to use Git for, let's say I'm writing a new symphony or a novel, or I'm working on a freelance web development project, or whatever it is, I need to tell Git to create a new repository. So it's just a Git workspace with its own history. So every Git repo has its own history. They're not linked, they're not connected in any way. There are these like little encapsulated bubbles. That's why I have this jar on the right with some Git history inside of it. So we can have as many repos as needed, all with separate histories and contents on our machine. So I may have a bunch of folders, a bunch of different projects. Each one of these is a separate project. If I want to use Git, I have to go into each project folder and create a Git repository. I have to tell Git, all right, I want a repo in here, and in here, and in here, and in here. And whatever happens in those folders, whatever Git commands I run, whatever history I store with Git, they're completely separate and not connected. So this allows me to have different histories for, a symphony, an app I'm cloning, a movie script I'm writing, a startup idea, whatever, a novel, portfolio website, you name it. I can have as many separate repositories as I need. And to wrap things up, here I have two separate folders, two different projects on my machine. And I've created Git repositories in each of them, which I haven't shown you how to do just yet, but I just want to show you that they have separate histories. So one project is this large web application, a bunch of files and folders. This other one, so the first one is called Yelp Camp 2.0. It's a project from one of my courses. The other one is just animals. It's a single folder with one file, very straightforward, just a list of animals. They both have separate Git histories. They are distinct repositories. I can prove that to you in a couple of ways. I'll show you in the console here. You can see all of this history here is associated with this Yelp Camp repository. So lots of stuff. What that stuff is, how I see it, don't worry about that. If I go to the animals directory and I do the same thing, a lot less and different history. All the history is about animals. Another way to show that to you is through a GUI like Git Kraken. Here I'm looking at the animals history for this one repository. You can see, there's a decent amount of stuff. It all has to do with animal-y stuff. And if I switch over to a different repository, very different, completely distinct history. There's collaborators, not just me. And this is, it goes back like a year or more versus this animals one is a lot more recent and obviously focused on animals. Anyway, we'll learn more about what all this is and how we make these checkpoints and how to use a GUI and the command line and all that stuff in upcoming videos. But for now, I just wanted to explain this concept of repositories and just show you some evidence of different Git histories for two different repos. So that's all there is to this term, this concept of a repository. It's a Git workspace, and in the next video, I'll show you how we create them, how we instantiate a new repo.